Well, if you would open your Bibles, Joshua chapter 10. Joshua chapter 10. Beginning with the very first verse, there you'll notice these words, Joshua chapter 10, beginning with verse 1. Now it came to pass that when Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, heard how Joshua had taken Ai and had utterly destroyed it, as he had done to Jericho and its king, so he had done to Ai and its king, and how the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel and were among them, that they feared greatly, because Gibeon was a great city, like one of the royal cities, and because it was greater than Ai, and all its men were mighty. Therefore Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, sent to Hoam, king of Hebron, Piram, king of Jarmuth, Japhia, king of Lachish, and Deber, king of Eglon, saying, Come up to me and help me, that we may attack Gibeon, for it has made peace with Joshua and with the children of Israel. And therefore the 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon, gathered together and went up, they and all their armies, and camped before Gibeon and made war against them. I want to talk about conquering challenging relationships. Conquering challenging relationships. It is clear that there are some people that you meet in this world that will challenge your very soul. Everybody has that somebody that just knows how to push your buttons. You know who they are. I hope that you don't live with them. But every now and then there are people that will vex you. They aggravate you. They frustrate you. And how do you deal with that? Here Joshua is leading the children of Israel. They had already seen God do incredible exploits, conquering various places where they had been. And these folks had heard of how God was with Joshua. They heard about how Joshua fought the battle of Jericho and the walls came a-tumbling down. They had heard about that. And they heard how Joshua had defeated the little city of Ai. And now they had heard that Joshua was in Gibeon, and now they are so intimidated that these kings, one king went to 4 other kings and said, listen, you guys are my friend. They went to their allies, and now an alliance of 5 nations, 5 different kings band themselves together to fight against Gibeon, Joshua, and the children of Israel. This is the hostile environment that Joshua now finds himself in. Isn't it amazing that when you are a friend of God, that sometimes you become an enemy to the world? Well, it's enough to fight one enemy. It's enough to fight one enemy. But when you've got 5 people that gang up on you, 5 kings ganging up on you, now that should have been called bullying. That was bullying in its full right. See, that's a different story when 5 kings, and this is what Joshua was dealing with, 5 different enemies, bullies coming against him. And I want you to be determined to fight for what you believe and what you want. Be determined to fight for what you believe and for what you want. And because everything in life that's worth having, you're going to have to put a little fight to get it. And not only do you have to fight to get it, oftentimes you have to fight to keep it. Don't ever be at ease to say that what God has done, that you don't ever have to fight to keep that thing sharp. No, you have to. If you had to fight to get it, you're going to have to fight to keep it. Sometimes you have to fight to get saved, and then you have to fight to stay saved. When most people's destiny is being fought, it is oftentimes fought by relationships primarily. When their destiny is being fought by a relationship. Some 2-legged human being, some group of folks that's working against you. It's not some spirit in some idol someplace, sitting in a statue or something. It's a 2-legged human being that's working against your destiny. When the devil really wants to derail you, he will partner you up with false friends. He'll send you a wrong spouse into your life. I don't know anything that derails destiny faster than marrying the wrong person. That's why that decision is so critical. It is so critical. He uses relationships. He uses relationships. You have to be very careful. Anybody who's close enough to help you is also close enough to hurt you. And so this is why it is the betrayal of friends that hurts you. In fact, you have to be in a trusted relationship to even betray somebody. It's impossible for an enemy to betray you because you don't trust them. The relationships that really damage you are the ones that you have trusted with the intimacies of your life. You trusted them with your friendship, with your inner thoughts, with your fears. You trusted them, and then somebody betrays your trust. And so the wounds or the betrayal of our friends is much more severe than the wounds of our enemies. The betrayals of our friends is much worse to us than the wounds that come from an enemy. But the point of the matter is that we're in a fight. I mean, 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 12 reminds us of that. Fight the good fight of faith. Fight the good fight of faith. When you have faith, you're going to have to be in a fight. You need faith for this fight, that there's a victory. Whenever you hear the word victory, it means it's as a fight. You're going to go through a struggle. You're going to deal with opposition. Don't be shocked by it. Don't be surprised by it. Brace yourself for it. Train yourself for it. If you know you got a fight coming up, you better train for it. Wouldn't it be crazy to have the fight of your life in preparation for you, and then you put no time preparing yourself for that fight? And the Bible has already told us, 1 Timothy 6:12, fight the good fight of faith, lay hold on eternal life, to which you were also called and have confessed the good confession in the presence of many witnesses. He's saying you need to fight. You need to fight. It's a fight to get to the faith, and it's a fight to stay in the faith. But there is a fight. And no matter how many changes people may take you through, you have to be determined in your heart and determined in your mind that you are going to grow through them, and don't let them change the essence of your God identity that He has given to you. Don't let what you go through change who God called you to be. Don't let what you go through change the essence of the God identity. Don't go through hard circumstances and allow hard circumstances to make you bitter. Because God didn't call you to be a bitter person. He didn't call you to be a mean-spirited person. He didn't call you to be an unforgiving person. Don't let what you go through make you into something that God never intended you to be. And so here, these are 5 kings who have allied themselves. They have allied themselves against Joshua and the children of Israel, fighting in Gibeon to try to wipe all of them out. And Joshua had to conquer these 5 kings because that was a promised land and they hadn't gotten to it yet. And you know you got to fight on your way to try to get to where God has prophetically declared that you're supposed to be. Now, I know some people think that because somebody prophesies that something wonderful is going to happen to you, that you don't have to do anything. No. You have to fight to get into that prophetic promised land. And every time that there's a prophetic promise, there's always a problem in front of the promise. Always a problem in front of the promise. You cannot lose your faith, but you've got to fight so you can get to that place of victory that God is calling us. He's calling us to victory. And so there are kings that are in your life, and these are relationships. These are relationships that must be conquered before you can enter the promised land. And see, if you don't deal with these things before you get into your promised land, you get in your promised land, and these things that you never dealt with before you got to the promised land will ruin your promised land experience. So there are relationships that you have to deal with before God can bring us into our promised land. And sometimes we're wondering, God, what's taking so long? Maybe He's waiting on us to deal with some of these kings, these things that are ruling in some areas of your life. There were 5 of them. There were 5. How many were there? There were 5 of them. 5 of them. And for practically everything that God has, the devil has a counterfeit. For practically everything that God has, the devil has a counterfeit. The devil is not a creator, he's a counterfeiter. He takes things that God has created and he perverts them. The devil is a counterfeiter. He's a counterfeiter. And that's how he makes his living. And see, these five kings ruling, they are a counterfeit fivefold ministry. They're a counterfeit fivefold ministry. You see, the core of the ministry here was Aaron and his 4 sons. Fivefold. Here's the five. They were the core. They gave all of the other instructions to all of the other Levites. They came from Aaron and his 4 sons. They were a type of the Old Testament of the fivefold ministry. They're a type of the fivefold ministry. So we have to clearly be able to get that. But these 5 kings, these were allies that were sent to destroy them so that they could not enter into what God had already prepared for them. Some of you may realize or remember this in Scripture, but after David killed Goliath, David spent the next 40 years killing Goliath's 4 brothers. He spent the next 4 years. And see, when you take down one giant, he's got some relatives. And you think that because one person dies that all of your troubles are over. Think again. Think again. I'm just telling you. So you might have to fight some enemies. And David he killed Goliath, but there were 4 brothers that Goliath had. And for the next 40 years, took David 40 years to tackle all of Goliath's other brothers. And so it's interesting that in another sense of the word, these 5 kings that allied themselves against Joshua and the people of God, sometimes these are you can look at these 5 kings as your 5 keen senses of sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. These can be 5 kings. There are some people that are totally ruled by their flesh. It rules them, and your 5 senses are sometimes the 5 kings that are working against you because you are so ruled by your feelings that you can't follow God. See, here's what I want you to see, is that every decision that you make, hear this carefully, every decision that you make is made either by your body, your mind, or your spirit. Every decision that you make is made either by your body, your mind, or your spirit. Feeling is the voice of the body. Feeling is the voice of the body. Feeling. It is the voice of the body. So when your body talks to you, it's like, well, it feels like such and such to me. I don't feel like I should do that. I don't feel like God wants. Feeling is the voice of the body. When a man touches a woman in a certain way, ooh, feeling. Your body starts talking to you because feeling is the voice of the body. Reasoning is the voice of the mind. The mind reasons. Every decision that you make either comes from your body, your mind, or your spirit. Every decision that you make. Feeling, though, is the voice of the body. Reasoning is the voice of the mind. And then discernment is the voice of the spirit. It is your conscience. You discern certain things in your spirit. I mean, you can meet people that's connected to your children or somebody else that you know and love, and you don't know anything about them from a conscious level. You've never seen them do this. You've never heard about this. But in your spirit, anybody know what I'm talking about? You discern. You're a discerner. You're a discerner. See, every decision that you make, you either make from your body, your mind, or your spirit. Your body, your mind, or your spirit. Your feelings, or your reasonings, or your discernment. And there are just some decisions that I couldn't go by my feelings. I didn't go by my reasonings because I had a discernment in my spirit that I trusted over my reasoning. Because, you know, when you sometimes are just looking at things through reasoning and you said, you know what, look, oh, they look so good on paper. Oh my goodness, can you see this? Oh, guess where they work? Oh, look at this background. Look at the education here. And your reasoning can say, ooh, girl, this man makes he makes a good salary. But sometime in your spirit can say, you know what? He may make a good salary and come home and go upside your head. You know, and then you may be able to look and say, oh my God, oh my, she's stacked, she's so fine. But then she may be lazy. Then she may be disloyal. She may be untrustworthy. See, there can be some, she may have so much junk in her trunk. I mean, you know, stuff from her past that has not been that has not been resolved. Where is your mind? But ask yourself, which realm is being used when I make decisions? Ask yourself, which realm is being used when I make decisions? Am I making these decisions from my body, my mind, or my spirit? My body, my mind, or my spirit. Listen, whenever you get married, listen, you need to go for number 3. Go for your spirit to be able to discern something in your spirit. If you're going to go into partnership in a business, don't go by their resume. Go by your spirit, because you can discern things. Your spirit knows things that your head will never understand. But every decision that you make either comes from your body. Your body. Oh, girl, I just like the way he make me feel. You get in a deep relationship, he's going to make you feel some other kind of way. You have to go by the discernment in your spirit. But every decision, just think about that. Every decision that you make either comes from your body, your mind, or your spirit. Your body, your mind, or your spirit. I want you to notice in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 6 through 10, notice this. Now these things were our examples, to the extent that we should not lust after evil things as they also lusted. Neither be ye idolaters, as were some of them. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed and fell in one day 23,000. Neither let us tempt Christ, as some of them also tempted and were destroyed of serpents. Neither murmur ye, as some of them also murmured and were destroyed of the destroyer. Now, there are 5 principal sins that kept the children of Israel out of the promised land. There are 5 principal sins. 5. How many were there? There were 5 that kept them out. How many kings came against Joshua and the children of Israel? 5. There were 5 of them. How many censors do we have? 5. You see, all of these things are speaking to us. There's a common thread here that's running here through the scriptures. But 5 sins kept the ones from entering the promised land. The only ones who entered were Joshua and Caleb. From the original group that came out, and all of the others could not enter in because of these 5 sins. These 5 sins. What were they? Lust. Notice this: lust, idolatry, fornication, tempting Christ, and murmuring, which is complaining. Tempting Christ is asking Jesus Christ to do something that is inconsistent with his character. It's asking God for something that's out of line with his word, that is incongruent with his spirit. That's to tempt Christ. If you ask Jesus Christ to bless mess, see, that would send the wrong message to you, that it's okay. But these 5 sins kept the children of Israel out of the promised land. Lust. Our society now thrives on lust. Lust, idolatry, putting things in the wrong place, giving too much priority to certain things in your life, inordinate affection, idolatry, fornication, sex outside of the blessing of the covenant of marriage. Fornication. Did I mention fornication? Isn't it amazing? And it kept them out. Do you remember they were in the wilderness, and these folks had a party. They had a party. And there was so much intercourse going on that God says, this is too much flesh for me. And he struck 23,000 of them dead just like that. 23,000 died in one day. 23. Now these are the children of Israel. These are God's people. Listen, flesh is flesh. It doesn't matter whether you're Jewish flesh, Chinese flesh, white flesh, black flesh, African flesh, Hispanic flesh. Flesh is flesh. It's flesh. It's all flesh. At the end of the day, you have to flesh it out. It's all flesh. And so they were dealing with it. And these 5 things, these 5 enemies, still warring, still taking people down today. Lust for money, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye, the pride of life, lust, all that is in the world, lusting after stuff, idolatry, fornication, tempting Christ, asking him to do something that's incongruent with his nature, his word, and murmuring, complaining. Can you imagine? Who wants to take complaining people on a trip? How do you feel when you bless somebody and then they complain? You didn't have to give them that. You didn't have to do this. Isn't it amazing that somebody said, you know what, she gave me this old coat here. You didn't have one. And they have the unmitigated gall to start murmuring, complaining over what you bless them with. And God says, if you're going to complain, I fed you. You didn't have anything to eat. You brought nothing to the picnic, and you want to criticize me for bringing manna, and I fed you, and I rained down quail, and then you got sick of that, and God says, okay, die here. Murmuring kept them out, complaining. We use the word complain. We use the word complain in this day and time. It's complain. It is complain. It's complain. It's complain. And that's the thing that actually kept the children of Israel out. Tons of them were kept out. They died in the wilderness because they murmured. It wasn't fornication. It wasn't lust. It wasn't idolatry. It was complaining. I wonder how many folks would be dead today if God was still struck. But I tell you this, isn't it something if people want you to be better to them than God was? God says, listen, I am not taking complainers with me to a promised land. And because I gave you a peanut butter sandwich and you complain because you didn't get any jelly? When you don't have anything to eat, listen, when you are starving, peanut butter sandwich or peanut butter cracker, whatever, sardines, it doesn't matter what it is. When you don't get choosy. When you don't have anything, you don't have the right to be choosy. The right attitude when you don't have something and somebody blesses you with it is thank you. Thank you. You didn't have to give me this, but you did. Thank you. All they gave me was $2. You didn't have that. Thank you. And they didn't owe that to you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And you know what? If you ever see somebody with a grateful heart, guess what? It opens up the door to make you want to bless them again. It really does. I'm telling you, Thanksgiving, having a heart of gratitude, it builds a bridge over which future blessings will be brought. But when somebody blesses you and you murmur or complain, you set fire to that bridge and burn it up, and nothing else further can be brought over it. And so it reminds me, as I mentioned, that these 5 kings it's a counterfeit that the devil uses. The authentic that he brings for the fivefold ministry: the apostle, the prophet, the evangelist, pastor, and the teacher. The apostle governs, the prophet guides, the evangelist gathers. It's the longest finger. He goes farther than anyone else. They gathers. The ring finger, this is the pastor. The pastor guards the sheep. It's the good shepherd. And this pinky finger, this is the teacher. The reason that this one is the pinky is because this is the only one that is small enough to get in your ear. This is a teacher. The teacher grounds. The apostle governs. The prophet guides. The evangelist gathers. The pastor guards. And the teacher grounds. And this becomes the anthropomorphic hand of the Lord. down in the lives of people, blessing us, preparing us, and equipping us to be who and what God has called us to be. This is the authentic thing, but in the Old Testament, these 5 kings that banded against them, these were like 5 fingers that banded together like a fist to try to knock them out of God's plan for where He wanted to bring them in. So we have to look at it in that way and then bring them into the place where God has designed for us to be. Now, I want you to notice this first king here is Adonizedek. Adonizedek means Lord of Justice. Lord of Justice. Lord of Justice. And what he's doing is not very just at all. He's ganging up with 4 other kings to try to defeat the people of God. That's not very just to me. Lord of Justice, Adonizedek. Now remember, the scriptures teaches us in the New Testament, these things were written for our example. If it's written for our example, what is the example that we learn from Adonizedek today, Lord of Justice? You know what it means? This Lord of Justice here is where a person makes themselves Lord in their own minds and tries to justify themselves. He's the Lord this is called self-justification. It is a king of self-justification.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Join us again next time for Power for Living, where revelation is power. Power for living.